they'll say, you know what? I mean, this kid can still get better, and let's see where we are a year from now. They've got to get an edge rusher in that first round. It's also a pretty deep linebacker crop, at least at the top. The kid from Georgia's been mentioned by quite a few.
He'll be gone before any of the Eagles come up.
Yeah, probably.
And day one of what could be a lengthy offseason, the Upbirds 365. Mac and Kerr today. Joining us now is our buddy from the Philly Mag and the 33rd Team, FB. You read him forever in the Inquirer. Paul Domowitch, good enough to hop aboard with us. Damo, are you okay today? Or are you like every other Eagle fan crying in your soup when another season ends and you got a long off season ahead of you?
Well, I'm not an Eagles fan, so I just want to get it out of the way early here and say you were right. I was wrong about the Cowboys.
As was Jeff Kerr. He was calling the Cowboys an overrated team all along as well. And the Cowboys were right for the picking. Tom Brady was not, and that was proved by the first two Buccaneer touchdowns. So let me get you on the record about this too. And thank you for acknowledging the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were a team you should have wanted no part of before yesterday's action. Are you livid at Nick Sirianni, a.k.a. the Eagles, because they always automatically defer to start the game? If ever there was a game to take the football first, to not let Tom Brady go down and stick it in your eye with a touchdown, yesterday was it. But the analytics say you got to defer. It just makes mathematical sense to do so. I go with football sense, and it annoyed the snot out of me yesterday. And oh, by the way, this is not a second guess. McMullen will concur. I bitch about it every week. Why do they do this, Dama? Why do they just genuflect at the altar of analytics when football sense tells you should have taken the football first yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be a league-wide belief now that that's the way you play it, so that you have the ball at halftime or coming out for the second half. Livid? No. This was a team that was fortunate to make the playoffs. I didn't expect them to win. I thought they'd play better than they did. But it's hard to be livid about anything in that game. They played poorly. They coached poorly. It was just an overall bad effort. But again, this is a team that won 4 games last year, finished 9-8. If they finished 9-8 and didn't make the playoffs, if they hadn't expanded the playoffs, we wouldn't have seen a lot of the things that it was good to see yesterday, because it kind of emphasized a lot of the shortcomings of this team and what they need to do going forward.
Well, I tried to look at the positives from this. Jalen Hurts got playoff experience. A lot of young guys on this team got playoff experience. But I guess I got to open up the can of worms here. Jalen Hurts didn't really do much to kind of silence the talk of maybe the Eagles should improve at the quarterback position.
Yeah, he played one of his poorest games, other than the first Tampa Bay game and the Giants game. I mean, it was right down there with those two as far as
you thought that first Tampa Bay game was so bad. I know it wasn't good, but the Giant game and yesterday to me were far and away worse than that first Tampa Bay game.
Yeah, again, it's one game. It's a big game, so I mean, people are going to put a lot more emphasis on it than they did the Giants game. You saw a lot of things that that you're concerned about with him. His lack of anticipation, his refusal to throw on time. I mean, he was late with so many throws yesterday, inaccurate with others. That watching him roll when he has to move to his left, and defenses are now going to force him to his left every time because he's so poor at throwing when he's moving left. And that interception, that backbreaking interception on the throw to Devonta was a clear, a proof of that. He's got a lot of things to work on. Now, the thing about Jalen is, as we've seen from last year to this year to now, he keeps improving. The question is, what's his ceiling? Is that ceiling high enough? when he reaches it, are you going to be happy with it? And that's, those are questions everybody's got to ask, particularly the decision makers of the Eagles, who have to figure out what they want to do. My sense, my feeling is they're going to stand pat. There's nothing in this draft worth trading up or giving multiple picks for at quarterback. I don't want any part of Deshaun Watson, even if he wanted to come here. I don't even want Russell Wilson. I'd rather stand pat with Jalen Hurts for another year, see what kind of improvement he makes, and then make a decision on the quarterback position, because you probably can trade one of the 3 picks this year into the first round next year. So you'll have multiple picks next year.
And I just looked it up. I knew that there was something about that game against Tampa the first time. Hurts scored their 2 touchdowns.
And again, they were at the end of like yesterday. I mean,
yeah,
he played
very similar to yesterday, but at least he did score those 2 touchdowns. That's why I didn't think it was as bad as yesterday or that Giant game. You're right about Jalen Hurts. As of right now, he's in the position, and they have to explore better. But if they can't get better, then you got to live with them. Will you give Jalen Hurts at least this much? Because I'm going to. The previous quarterback here in Philadelphia, when the Eagles dared to put someone else in for him, when he was playing like the worst quarterback in the National Football League, he lost his mind. And that's why he got shipped out of town, because he demanded it. And it just would have been a dumpster fire if they had kept him here in Philadelphia. During this offseason, we're going to have stories about the Eagles are monitoring Deshaun Watson in his legal situation. Russell Wilson is contemplating. His agent is giving out a list of teams he would accept a trade to, and Philadelphia is on that list. Oh, there's going to be conversations about it. I think Jalen Hurts will be able to deal with that better than Carson Wentz or like 90% of the other quarterbacks, are ego-driven quarterbacks around this league. He is such a centered kid, and he is so narrow-focused that even though there may be rumors flying all around him about the Eagles and the quarterback position next year, if nothing comes to fruition, I got faith that this kid will have his head screwed on straight coming back into camp. Do you?
Yeah, I do too, Jody. I mean, I like the kid. I've thought from the beginning that he could, when they drafted him, they didn't draft him to be in this position. They thought at the time Carson Wentz would continue to improve, but they needed insurance for an injury-riddled quarterback. That didn't work out because, like you just said, Carson started crying like a baby when he looked over his shoulder and saw Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts will take yesterday and build off of it. He knows he played badly. He knows he has to improve. And the other thing about Jalen is he brings things to the table that you got to put into the recipe here when you're considering him. One is the leadership aspect. I mean, that locker room, even after yesterday, is in his corner. I mean, he's had them since the first snap he took with that first team offense. And that's not going to change. And that's not something every quarterback has. If you're going to make a change, you've got to consider what the rest of the locker room thinks about that. The other thing is his running ability. You've always, this isn't a guy that, Russell Wilson ran a lot early. Towards the end, that didn't happen. They phased it out and made him more of a scrambler and less of a runner. I think you're always going to have to take, like Lamar Jackson, you're always going to have to take advantage of what Jalen can do with his legs. So factor those 2 things into the equation. And, I still think this is a kid, I can't say for sure, but I think he deserves next year to prove he can continue to get better.
One of the things that's bugged me all year when people criticize Jalen Hurts is they say he doesn't have the arm strength. No, he does have the arm strength. I think it's the accuracy issues and seeing the field that has been his biggest issue. What do you think? Do you agree with me on that? Do you think that's the 2 things he needs to work on, or do you find something else he needs to improve?
No, I agree. He doesn't have the strongest arm in the world, but that's there are a lot of quarterbacks in this league that have been very successful that haven't had a rocket, and most of his problems have been he holds on to the ball too long. He won't let go of it when he sees he's still making that transition from the college game. and it's not an easy one. I mean, the game is much faster in the NFL. You've got to make he didn't have to make any read progressions at Oklahoma because it was basically a first read, and if it's not there, you run. He's had to adapt to that and change. And the other thing is, you've got to throw open to receivers. You don't wait for them to get open. You saw that yesterday with Brady. A lot of his incompletions were throws that he was anticipating the receiver being somewhere that the receiver didn't get to. But that was the receiver's fault, not Tom's. So, I mean, that's another thing this kid needs to learn. But those are all things you can learn. That's why I believe that when they look at everything in totality, they'll say, you know what? I mean, this kid can still get better, and let's see where we are a year from now.
Damo, come September, when the Eagles' 2022 season gets underway, their defensive coordinator will be Jonathan Gannon or someone else? Unless
the unexpected happens and he gets a head coaching job, I would expect him to be the defensive coordinator. I didn't like the job he did yesterday. I haven't liked a lot of the things he's done this year. Rob Gronkowski was interviewed this week, and he was asked about Gannon and the Eagles defense, and he used the word safe. And that's what it is. I mean, Jonathan Gannon, but I can't figure out what's in Jonathan Gannon's mind as to why he's playing the way he is. Is it because he doesn't believe he can play another way because of the limitations of the talent he has? Or is it because this is the way he thinks you can play successfully once you have the talent? Certainly if you had better talent, if you had linebackers that can get to the ball quicker, things like that, you can play a bend but not break and not be, not blitz the hell out of a quarterback and just, make them take what you give them and see if they can beat you that way. The problem is this team isn't good enough to do that. And in my mind, he should have adjusted. He should have been aggressive. I mean, I've always felt when I've been on teams without talent, you got to take chances. That has not been the way he's approached this. So, we'll see next year because this defense is going to have to be rebuilt. I mean, there's just not enough good players on this unit. Few good players they have are old and they're going to have to be replaced. So, that's why, and that's another reason in Jalen's favor why you don't want to make a quarterback change right now. You need those picks. You need to use those high picks on defensive players.
Yeah, one of my hot topic points yesterday was, and I was arguing with this a couple guys in the CBS group, Patrick Mahomes wouldn't have won that football game yesterday. Not with the receivers he has and not with that defense he has. Like, I'm sorry, I don't see what upgrading the quarterback. Yeah, do you have every right to look? Absolutely. But I feel like it's no matter who the quarterback was yesterday, you were not going to win that football game. It feels like the number one priority of the Eagles should be let's build around the quarterback instead of let's try to improve the quarterback because the result could still be the same, 9-8.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, they're a team in transition here. I mean, we don't know what Jason Kelsey's going to do. We don't, Lane Johnson's maybe two more good years. I mean, he's playing well, but he's in his 30s. Brandon Brooks, I don't know if he'll be back or not. So, I mean, even on offense, you have change. But, I mean, they've got to go out and get another receiver. That's clear. I mean, if I see Jalen Reagor out there again, somebody should be fired. He's just not good enough. I'm not as a punt returner, not as a second wide receiver. I mean, they can throw in these damn bubble screens forever. They're not going to work. They're not all his fault. I mean, the blocking was poor on a lot of them. But they could, that was their answer yesterday, and that's what kind of irritated me about Nick's game plan. When they tightened up, put 8 in the box to take away the run, he went to these bubble screens, thinking, well, if they're going to pack the inside, we'll beat them outside with these quick screens. Well, Tampa Bay's got some athletic players, and they got out. Nick's not ready to play chess with Todd Bowles, and that's he lost that match yesterday in a big way.
Damo, we're going to talk about this for the next 18 months leading up to the draft. We'll get into it in a month now from free agency, but the redo of the Eagles' defense. They need help at linebacker big time. They've got two safeties whose contracts are up, who are veteran guys who, yeah, you could go youth in the draft or you could try and get better via free agency. I'm a bigger Steven Nelson fan than Jeff Kerr is. He lumped them in with the guys who definitely needed to be upgraded. I don't know about that. I think Steven Nelson is one of those guys who just does what he's told in a Jonathan Gannon defense, and he's play off. Okay, you're going to catch in front of me. I'll tackle. He does his job, play in and play out. I'd like to see him back here, and I thought that should have been one of the guys how he talked about a contract extension. Maybe he did, and Nelson was just asking for too much money. I don't know, but where are the priorities? If you had to put a list together in order of the priorities, edge pass rusher, linebacker, playmaker all over the field, safety, upgrade a quarterback over Steven Nelson, just defense, how would you prioritize position for the Eagles via either free agency or draft?
Yeah, I'm going to side with Jeff on Steve Nelson. I mean,
you're going back down the same route again, buddy. I'm advising you not to do that.
Those tackles you say he made when he got to the ball, he missed too many of them. I don't think he'll be back.
I don't think he will either, because I think someone will disagree with both Paul Domowitch and Jody McDonald and probably overpay him. He's good.
Yeah.
He's above average.
I think he did his job this year. That's all I got to say about it. He did. Yeah. He filled the role he was supposed to fill.
He was not. I mean, on the list of liabilities, he was not their highest one. And why I will never question Jody McDonald again. So whatever you say, Jody, you are right.
Feel free, but I'll just hammer it home when you're wrong. But feel free to question, Damo. Never stop questioning.
The first thing we're going to find out is, they've got all these needs. I mean, you mentioned them all: edge rusher, linebacker, one way or another, a corner, and safety. That's a lot of needs. That's pretty much every position. First thing we're going to see is how many of them are they going to fill in free agency. They're going to have plenty of money to address. I really haven't looked at the free agency list. I don't know who's going to be available. I'm sure there'll be some impact players, and we'll see how much they believe in some of these guys. My problem here with that is they're going to rely a lot on Gannon and his people to give suggestions on people that they may have had experience with. And that hasn't been working well this year. I mean, we saw with Eric Wilson, he didn't work out. He was a guy they knew about. Even Steven Nelson, Anthony Harris, guys like that. So I don't know, they better make right decisions if they go free agency on some of these defensive players. Draft-wise, this is an enormously strong – this is what last year was the edge rusher crowd is this year what quarterback was last year or was supposed to be. So they've got to get an edge rusher in that first round. It's also a pretty deep linebacker crop, at least at the top. The kid from Georgia has been mentioned by quite a few.
He'll be gone before any of the Eagles come up.
Yeah, probably. But they need a linebacker. So that's where I would start. A cornerback, you might be able. I might think free agency for that. Same with safety, unless if I don't address them in free agency, then you look at the draft. But they've got, besides those 3 first-round picks, I want to say they got 4 in the first 40, 5 in the first 50, maybe. I'm not sure, but they've got a lot of early picks that they need to hit on. This is a year we will either remember Howie Roseman for or condemn him into the decade for. So, but they've got to make some smart decisions because this is an important rebuild on this defense.
Yeah, we talked about Jason Kelce potentially being done, with his future Hall of Fame career. There's another longtime Eagle that he kind of indicated he probably won't be back, or he's hoping he'll be back, and that's Rodney McLeod. And for all the injuries he had, I actually thought he had a pretty decent year this year. Do you think the Eagles entertain that, or do you think they say, you know what, you're 32, 33 now, it's finally time to move on?
Yeah. Let me preface that, Jeff, by saying, as you know, I mean, Rodney's one of the nicest, best human beings the Eagles have ever had on one of their rosters. I mean, he's a terrific person, been a great guy in the community, but he's kind of guy they need to stay away from now. And he's the kind of guy that's kind of put him, I don't want to say in the spot because they just got old, but it's the Chase Utley syndrome here. You can't keep a guy just because you like him and you want him to succeed. The problem is he's going to get, he's already had 2 major injuries. Just like with Brandon Graham, there's probably a good chance he's going to break down again. You want to keep them. You hope that, that if Rodney came back, he'd be better next year than this year because he's a year further away from the ACL. But that's not what I want to do if I'm the GM. I want to get young. I want to stop crossing my fingers on older guys. If it means not being as good early on. I mean, we wouldn't even be talking about this if Kayvon Wallace was better. I thought he would be. They thought he would be. He hasn't been. So, but yeah, that's the way I feel about Rodney. I just don't want to continue to hold on to older players and hope they'll stay healthy.
I like the Chase Utley analogy that you used because I think it's on point. By the way, Eagles 3 firsts, 3 fifths this year. They've got their own second, third, and fourth. So only 3 in the top 50. Their pick is 51 in the second round. So they've got bullets, not an arsenal, but they've got bullets that they can use for this upcoming draft. All right, Damo, I need a prediction out of you. When the Eagles make a couple players, and they usually do a handful of players available day after the season ends. Certainly we're going to hear from Sirianni, but we'll hear from a couple Eagle players. Will Kelsey be one of them? Or will Jason beg off and say, nah, sorry, I just don't want to do it this year?
If I had to guess, I think unless Jason's already made up his mind, which I doubt he has, he's going to say, let's do this in a month when he knows what he's going to do. I mean, it doesn't do him any good, and it doesn't do the media any good for him to go up there today and say things he's not sure of. I mean, whether or not he's going to be back or not, because I'd highly doubt he knows right now. There's too much emotion still wearing on him, including those holding penalties yesterday that might inspire him to come back and go. I mean, he might not want to finish his career with the memory of Vita Vea. So the thinking was that he wasn't going to be back. I mean, that's the sense I got from people that around him like a month ago, that this was probably it for him. I'm not ready to go there yet. I just think that he might say, you know what, we got good enough that I want to see if we can be better next year. I want to be a part of that and go out on a little better, higher note. Jody
and I talked about this earlier, but Miles Sanders is an enigma with this team because when he plays, he's pretty good. 4th in the league in yards per carry, 3rd in the league in yards per touch and center the league, but he may not be back in 2022. It's a crazy feeling. Do you bring him back, or do you try to trade him and get some collateral, before he does become a free agent?
Yeah, it would depend on what somebody's offering, Jeff. If I'm getting a good offer for him, I might think about it because I really like Kenny Gainwell. But I think the two of them can complement each other, so I don't think it's necessarily exclusive of one another. But Miles is this is his 3rd year. He'll be going into his last year of his contract next year. So they've got to have a sense of what they're going to do with him long term. I mean, I thought when they drafted Kenny Gainwell that it probably meant Miles was only going to be here for one contract. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were willing to trade him if somebody offered them the 2nd round pick they got for him or they used on him. So, but that'll be, I mean, there's a lot of interesting decisions this year. You're not going to get much for Brandon Brooks, but if he wants to keep playing, would you just trade him? I mean, they don't, their offensive line is good enough without him, which is hard to believe that you could take one of the best guards in the league, subtract him, and still be good. Even Jason. I mean, what do you do with if he leaves? Do you keep Dickerson at guard? Do you move Landon Dickerson to center, which is kind of what their plan was when they drafted him? But he's played so well at guard. There's just I mean, this is going to be a busy offseason with a lot of questions. For an Eagles fan, it's going to be a really interesting one.
So since you went to the offensive line, let me follow up there. Both Jeff and I went off early, and you followed suit. Jalen Reagor should never play another game for the Eagles again. But the Eagles seem to be motivated by a draft status of a player. You get a longer leash. You get more chance to prove you're not good enough. Andre Dillard, if a team offers a 4th-round pick, do you trade him for a day 3 pick, or do you bring him back and just go, all right, you're joining my lot as caddy? You're a 1st-round pick, but we're not going to give you up for lesser. The Eagles cling to that 1st-round status. For me, a little bit too much going forward. They should move on from Dillard if they can. What do you think happens with the former 1st-round left tackle pick?
Well, that's a good question because, you got to remember here, their right tackle is getting older. And you got to.
Yeah, but he can't move over there. We did that a couple of times, and that did not work as an experiment.
Maybe maybe with a little practice. I mean, if you believe he can't move over, then I would consider trading him definitely. You're right about the draft status. I mean, one of the things that drives me crazy is, and I don't know how you get. I mean, I just feel I don't understand the Greg Ward situation at all. I mean, he played 6 snaps yesterday. Jalen Reagor played 53. You know who would have helped that team a lot more? Greg Ward. I mean, Greg Ward is a quarterback like Jalen Hurts needs out on the field. I don't know why he isn't. I don't. If that's on Nick, then shame on him. If it's on his offensive coordinator, shame on him. I mean, the kid needs to play. Whether he was an undrafted free agent who needed 3 years to make a team or not. And same thing. I mean, because you got to use the same logic with him as you do with Reagor. But you're right. If Rager's back, there's something wrong here. I mean, it means Howie Roseman is not willing to admit to a mistake, a big mistake.
Well, another one too. Like, I didn't think he had a great year, but for a 6th-round pick, he did. Wes Watkins, he helps this football team, and for some reason, the Eagles just don't seem to. And look, he did get open on the one play. Jalen Hurts just didn't see him, but the Eagles just don't seem to utilize him probably the way he should. Not like I'm saying he should be a number 2 or a number 3 wide receiver here, but he does provide some value to his football team, and they just don't utilize him the way I think they should.
He does, and I think it would work out better if they find a number 2 receiver, a bigger number 2 receiver, a guy with JJ's size, Arcega-Whiteside that's actually good. That way you can use Watkins a little bit more, excuse me, to suit his abilities. He's not a big body, and they've already got the thin frame guy in Devonta. I mean, he's not Devontae Smith, but yeah, I mean, there's a place for him, and I think it's more than on those bubbles, but you don't need both him and Reagor to run those bubble screens.
All right, Domo, last question. I asked this of BLG. We had him on earlier. Will this be a front and center Jeff Lurie offseason? Last year had to be because they made the decision to move on from Doug Peterson. So the owner needed to come out and explain that. And he went on the record as calling it a transitional year, which good job, Jeff Lurie, because at least it sold me on the fact that this was a advancement year. This was a positive year. It was a disappointing day yesterday, but the year still, to me, is considered a success because you labeled it as a transition year. Well, you transitioned into a playoff spot, albeit a newly created 7th seed, which both of them got their asses kicking yesterday. But, hey, they made the playoffs. Are we going to see Jeff Lurie front and center this offseason, or is this a Howie Roseman offseason?
I mean, I think we'll see Jeff at some point talk. And I think he'll probably say what you just said, Jody. I mean, he's going to say, we're really happy that, we were a sort of a rebuilding team, and we made the playoffs, and a lot of guys showed improvement, and we're happy with the way Jalen is improving, and we think we're going to be better next year, and we know we still need to make a lot of changes, blah blah blah. I mean, and I'm not saying you should say anything else differently, because that's all true. But I mean, that's what you're going to hear from him. I don't think he's going to hide. There's no need to. He doesn't have to do any hard explaining about his, about Nick. So, I would think he'd be only too accessible, because there's not a whole lot to not want to talk about.
Damo, great stuff all year. Thank you very much for coming on. You can read him at phillymag.com, the 33rd Football Team FB. He will be here for the next 9 months leading up to when the Eagles take the game again. We will tap into his expertise plenty. Thanks for jumping on with us as often as you did, bud. We'll talk again real soon. Thanks
for having me, guys. Take care. Have a good day.
That is Paul Domowitch here with us on Birds 365. All right, Jeff Kerr and I need to come back and put a bow on the show. Damn, I don't want to say this, but I got to say it. Put a bow on the season for the Philadelphia Eagles here on Birds 365.